Welcome to Dodgers Dogs. As part of the Dodgers Daily Network, Casey Porter here, joined by Austin Brubaker. Austin, what a wonderful job you did breaking down all the opportunities and possibilities, I should say, for the Dodgers here in the hot stove season via trade, via free agency. How you doing tonight? And kind of put that in a summation, if you will.
Well, first off, Casey, it's great to be able to see you. It's great that we're talking about the hot stove. I love the hat that you have on, the 8ers hat. It reminds me of warmer times of baseball because it's snowing right now in the state of Michigan. It's freezing out here. So I'm glad to think of a little bit warmer times and be able to do this a late night Dodgers show. I mentioned in the chat it's late night because I'm on here on the East Coast, 10 o'clock p.m. No, we are in the off-season mode, which with the Dodgers winning the World Series, there really isn't a time period, even though I think we all kind of wanted some sort of time period to be able to rest and just recap on the World Series. There is no time period. Once the
I
World
did. You
Series
saved me
ends.
on that. I couldn't move on. I finally have, but you saved me on that.
Oh, I know. And a lot of work went into it, which I was able to unveil as far as what was going to some of the decisions that the Dodgers had to make in the course of the offseason. They've already made some rather impactful moves in the offseason that are going to determine what they're going to do or have a chance to determine some of the moves that they're going to make moving forward. Look, this team, obviously back-to-back World Series championship, incredibly talented team, and they're going to return a vast majority of the core that helped win them that World Series championship both years. So it's how do you add supplemental pieces? How do you add to some of the needs onto this roster to make it to where the Dodgers are in as good of a position to win back-to-back World Series championships? And I think it comes from a couple of different positions / areas of need. I think there is, or at least going into the offseason, was some sort of need for some sort of outfield bat / some sort of defensive upgrade / somebody that was going to hit well against right-handed pitching. We'll be diving into that, I'm sure, during the show tonight. And then for bullpen help. And what was unique about what the Dodgers have, and we're going to dive into this, and I did a whole show dedicated towards it yesterday. The specific move to add Ryan Ward onto the roster, I think, complicates some things for the Dodgers strategy going forward and what they're going to do to address some of the needs that they have on the offensive side of the ball. Does that alter the strategy that the Dodgers should pursue? Does this mean that Ryan Ward's going to get a legit opportunity? Is the organization making a mistake or doing something wrong by Ryan Ward? All serious questions as we enter the beginning stages of free agency, as we enter in the beginning stages of the winter and of the offseason.
Okay, was the Dodgers offense good in the postseason?
The Dodgers offense was not great during the postseason.
Okay.
No.
What would be the reasons why? What would be the biggest reasons why for you?
Okay, so this is where I think you and I are going to have a little bit of a difference because I think the biggest thing that haunted the Dodgers was some of the bottom of the order. I think if you look at the bottom of the Dodgers order, particularly with 5 through 9, a lot of those hitters, almost all of those hitters, were significantly better against left-handed pitching than right-handed pitching. You look at Teoscar Hernandez. Max Muncy is the only exception in that list. You look at Tommy Edmonds, part of that, and Andy Pages was part of that regularly, and Kike Hernandez. All of those guys significantly better against left-handed pitching than they are against right-handed pitching, which means that once you run into a team like the Toronto Blue Jays, who has a lot of right-handed pitching, and when you go through that run, if Max Muncy is not hot, that means the bottom of the order is not really helping contribute. And when you have an extended, really streaky hitter like an Andy Pages, who goes on an extreme cold streak and isn't able to turn the lineup over to somebody like a Shohei Ohtani, to where when Shohei Ohtani was on, which he wasn't consistent, but when he was on, was he on. There just wasn't that many opportunities to put up those crooked type numbers. So there was a lack of contact, which I think is going to be the biggest issue that you probably have, but also a lack of personnel that can really go ahead and hit against right-handed pitching, which showcased itself if Max Muncy was not hitting in that part of the lineup.
So we need to be able to hit better against right-handers because you already have Teo, you already have Andy. And then also you need a good defender in the outfield because you already have Teo, who's not a good defender. By the way, made the huge play where he picked up the double, threw it into Tommy Edman. Without all those things, then you don't win the World Series. The Dodgers hit 24 home runs in 17 games. The slug was fine. Matter of fact, the only reason the Dodgers were able to score enough runs is because they hit enough home runs. Mm-hmm. But I would say that the reason why it was so dicey and why the offense was not good was because it wasn't because of the slug. It was because you couldn't get anybody on base in front of the slug, right? So it were solo home runs instead of 2, maybe 3-run home runs. So when you look at the postseason, I think the biggest problem with the Dodgers is that they didn't consistently get enough guys on base to make the crooked numbers a possibility, either with a 2 to 3-run home run or just a normal rally where you string together 3 to 4 to 5 hits and put up a 2 to 3 spot. And you can debate whether it's the slug or whether it's the bat to ball, whatever. I think that the Blue Jays outscoring the Dodgers in the postseason goes to show that their style of offense worked better in the postseason than the Dodgers. The Dodgers just had this miraculous series. I mean, seriously, if you replayed that 7-game series probably 10 times, I'm going to say the Blue Jays probably win 7. It was miraculous the way the Dodgers won. So I think you need, first of all, defense. You can't have a bad right fielder. And this was part of the problem with Michael Conforto, too. He wasn't a great defender.
Yeah.
You can't have a bad defender and right fielder, then a bad defender and left fielder, then a converted right fielder in center field for your outfield. I think we saw, even with the Toronto Blue Jays, some of the mistakes they made. Defense absolutely, absolutely matters. Mm-hmm. So I think you need a guy that gets on base. I think you need a guy that puts the ball in play. I think you need a guy that's going to hit towards the bottom of your lineup that you just mentioned. Matter of fact, I think you need a guy that's going to hit right in front of Shohei Ohtani. That's going to get on base a lot. And I don't give a rat's ass if this guy hits home runs at all. That's not the player the Dodgers need. The player the Dodgers need is a guy that can gather base hits, get on base, and be a guy that's a high on base guy to turn the lineup over with. So I think you're looking at 2 different guys. Kyle Tucker, I think the first thing you would do is you offer him 7 years and you say, hey, here's the backloaded part of it. Here's the cash part of it. Here's the investment part of it. Actually, if you allow us to invest this for you, you're going to make more money on your interest than you would if you just took a regular 10-year contract with somebody else. I think you throw that at Kyle Tucker. If/when he turns that down, then I think you immediately pivot to Steven Kwan. You already have way too many outfielders in the system that are elite right now, elite in terms of prospects, than you'll ever be able to use. You can use one of those guys. And then also, here's why I think you pivot to Steven Kwan. Other than the fact that he would be an unbelievable 9-hole, he would fill in all the holes that you had in the postseason because he would get on base. He would hit for high average. He'd be a great defender in the outfield. Beyond that, though, Austin, he's going to be on contract for this year and then in 2027. And his timeline is the perfect timeline for Zach Earhart, James Tibbs III, Chris Newell, maybe a Damon Keith, obviously a Josue De Paula, a Zaire Hope, a Mike Sirota, a Eduardo Quintero. His timeline is perfectly in line with him being in the Dodgers system long enough to turn it over to one of those or 2 of those guys.
Okay, so there's a lot of discussion that we can have with a lot of those different elements. I'll address the Blue Jays versus the Dodgers offense just because I think this fact is rather fascinating, and this is not something that I particularly expected. So the Blue Jays and the Dodgers style of offense is a little bit different. The Blue Jays obviously have a lot more contact part of their game. They're going to get a lot more base hits.
But they hit the ball hard too, though. That's another thing they do.
They hit the ball hard. If you look, and I'm talking more regular season numbers, because in the postseason, when you add in the power element that the Blue Jays have, that makes their offense almost unstoppable, which is why they look so incredibly powerful, is because they had power to a degree that they didn't quite have during the course of the regular season. What was interesting when I was doing a little bit of the research in the full scale regular season sample size is I looked at the Dodgers and the Blue Jays. How many times did those teams score 2 or less runs? And my theory was the Dodgers, because they seem to be a little bit more boom and bust, would have more 2 or less run games. They would be a little bit more of have a lot of runs and then not as many less than, or have a little bit more 2 or less runs, just because of some of the inconsistencies that approaching some of the a little bit more swing and miss but higher power numbers produce. What was interesting about that, and this does not mean that you have to continue to pursue the type of players that the Dodgers have, they actually had 7 less games during the course of the regular season where they scored 2 or less runs than what the Blue Jays have.
Who's the best offensive player for the Blue Jays?
The Blue Jays would be Vlad Jr.
Okay, and then who's probably the second best?
Springer would be those 2 best players.
You wouldn't say Bo Bichette Jr.?
Based off of the numbers this past year, I would say those 2. Bichette would probably be number 3.
Based off, why do you think those numbers this past year happened?
Because you combined the incredible bat-to-ball skills that both of them have with power.
No, why do you think Bo Bichette wasn't one of their best offensive players this last year?
It's a really good question. I don't necessarily know the ins and outs of him. I know he dealt with some sort of injury, at least towards the end of the season. I don't know how that was impacted him over the course of the regular season.
Well, he fractured a finger in July. I mean, it's hard to hit with a fractured finger.
And that very well could be the case, is why he was struggling or wasn't to the exact same degree. I just know that Vlad Jr. and George Springer, their regular season numbers were really, really solid. There's nothing to diminish the season that Bo Bichette had. All 3 of those guys, really, really solid hitters. And the Blue Jays offense was really solid. All the point that I'm trying to make is there's different ways to be able to approach this offensive mindset. And the tactics that you can use. And this is to say that there perhaps some of the inconsistencies that we see with the Dodgers offense are something that is common across the game of baseball, even for teams that we hold to an extraordinary high degree. That doesn't mean that the Dodgers should not pursue more contact like what we saw with the Blue Jays, because that obviously worked in the postseason, and that there was a lot of tremendous talent that they were able to have. I think you need to add a little bit more contact to the bottom of the order, but the Dodgers offense, as far as the overall structure, I don't believe needs an overhaul. Now,
and let me ask you this. How many home runs do you think there's more home runs hit against a pitcher in the stretch or a pitcher in the windup?
That is a good question.
I have no research on this.
Yeah.
But on every single level, I promise you it's harder to pitch having to worry about a runner on first base or worry about a runner on – your attention's not undivided. Your attention's divided. Then also – I mean, the Dodgers are one of the few that don't slide step. There are some pitchers that slide step, right? So you're going to lose velo. You're going to lose movement from that. You're going to lose a little bit of extension. So, I mean, I think personally, if you add a guy, let me throw you from a baseball perspective, if you add a guy that's on base and now that pitcher is in the stretch against Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, and Freddie Freeman, you're going to make up for a lot of those home runs just because the pitches that Shohei Ohtani is going to see and Mookie Betts is going to see and Freddie Freeman is going to see aren't going to be quite as sizzly, if you will, because they're going to be coming out from a pitcher that's out of the stretch instead of the windup. I can't tell you how many times I've heard in a dugout where when a team's struggling, guys, let's just get this guy in the stretch and let's see how he does there. So I just think the Dodgers, again, they hit 24 home runs in the postseason in 17 games. That's awesome. They already have enough guys that hit home runs. They already hit enough home runs, okay?
Yep.
What they need is those home runs to be 2 or 3 run home runs. Then it's not a 7-game nail biter to where we're all still trying to figure out how they want it. I think if Stephen Kwan stays on this team in the postseason and he gets on base 22 times in the postseason, I think the Dodgers probably add about 4 or 5 home runs that aren't solos, and you probably win a couple more games that are more comfortable. So I'm not saying eliminate the slug.
Yeah.
I'm simply saying the Dodgers already have enough slug. That's the only reason they won offensively. And I think getting another guy with bat-to-ball skills, on-base skills, getting on-base skills, only accents and makes that slug more effective. That's what I'm saying.
Yes. So I think you need somebody that can consistently and reliably get on base at the bottom of the order to really help turn the lineup over to the guys that are going to be able to hit for power, that are going to be able to drive in the ball, like a Shohei Ohtani, having somebody with the high on base skills at the 8 or 9 hole, which if you talk about the 8 and 9 hole consistently throughout the regular season for the Dodgers, it was guys like Andy Pages and Tommy Edman. Both of those guys, great players. They're not guys that are going to walk a lot, and they can be inconsistent at times with the bat. Andy Pages relies a little bit more on his
is very inconsistent. He always has been. He's always been explosive, but he'll go a month and be the best player on your team offensively, and then he'll go the next month and be the worst team on your. It's like there's never been an in-between with him. And as you said earlier, his hot streaks are like not 5 games. They're like an entire month. Same with his cold streak. So if you want to have Andy Pages on your team, that's just what he's always been.
Yep, which means that he might not be the best player at the 9 hole if you want somebody that's going to get consistently on base. He's also not somebody who, based on his recent track record, is going to walk a whole lot. It was in the 4.5% to 5% range. Same thing with Tommy Edman. He's not somebody who's going to walk a whole lot. So how do we fix the bottom of the lineup to be able to add a little bit more of that? Well, let's remove Kyle Tucker from the equation in the minute, because that's going to require a massive deal. And this is not to undermine the talent and skill set of Kyle Tucker. He clearly and by far is the best free agent out there if you want to go out and get and target an outfielder. He's good against lefties. He's good against righties. He is absolutely incredible over the last 3 seasons, which I've been using consistently the past 3 season stats, because I think this gives the best representation of who this player is, rather than just this past season or rather than his full career. I think the past 3 seasons is the best way to be able to do that. So I did my own calculations to find what the numbers are the past 3 seasons. Kyle Tucker, the past 3 seasons, 146 WRC plus. That's right incredible. In the Freddie Freeman. That's right in the Mookie Betts. Right in that range. That's better than a Will Smith. That's better than a Max Muncy. He would fit right in the middle of the order. He would not necessarily solve the problem at the bottom of the order. So massive contract. I don't know if the Dodgers are going to go for the Kyle Tucker contract. Tremendous player. Really good walk numbers. Doesn't strike out a whole lot. Let's set him off to the side, and let's talk specifically about Steven Kwan, because Steven Kwan could be somebody that the Dodgers could pursue to directly address this concern. Now, let's talk about some of the strengths that Steven Kwan has before we talk about some of the potential concerns, because Steven Kwan, as a player, is going to be an expensive asset, which means that you need to understand the profile of player before you go out and actually say, I want to pursue this guy. So defensively as a player, he's phenomenal. He is one of, if not the very best left fielders defensively in the game of baseball. That would create a defensive outfield of Steven Kwan, Andy Pages, and Teoscar Hernandez from left to right field. This would, in fact, keep Andy Pages in center field. However, he made tremendous strides in center field. And if you have a guy like a Steven Kwan that can help reassure some of the defense, it would make that defense go a long way. Would not move Teoscar out of right field. It would keep him in right field.
Correct.
And let's be honest, the Dodgers kept
that's a damn good defensive outfield when you go from Quan to Pages to Teo.
Teo would be the only weak spot.
Well, fine. Nobody's perfect.
Yes. But you have 2 tremendous defensive outfielders that can really help with that. And let's be honest, the Dodgers kept Teoscar Hernandez in right field all of last year. They did not move him once to left field, which means that there could be something there about Teoscar playing right field. I don't know what exactly is going on. That discussions could come up over the course of the offseason. He could move to left. That would be what the defensive line meant, which would fix some of the defensive concerns that you have. Also, talking about Steven Kwan, very much a contact-oriented guy.
Yes.
If you want to move towards the Toronto Blue Jays approach.
It's fit. We always want to think about name. Best player. It's fit. Yes. That's where I'm headed here.
Yes, and you talk about him. He does not strike out at all. Over the past 3 seasons, a sub 10% strikeout percentage. He's somebody who is going to put the ball in play, and very much is a little bit more of an older school style of player. His batting average and on-base percentage, which these are some of the more important numbers, especially if you're looking for high on base type of guys. Steven Kwan over the past 3 seasons, 276 batting average with a 344 on base percentage. Now,
and what's that going to do in the Dodgers lineup? So if he's in front of Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, okay, what kind of pitching is he going to get?
He likely is going to get.
He's going to get a hell of a lot better pitches to hit. And the Dodgers lineup, that 276 should, especially if he's platooned against right-handers in some kind of role that's advantageous for him, that 276 could easily balloon over 300 just by the Dodgers having enough depth to put him only in the best matchups and then being in front of Shohei Ohtani, the type of pitching he's going to get because of that.
Yes. So that's some of the upside with Steven Kwan. Let's talk about some of the downside and some of the realistic things, because I think there is some concerns that Dodgers fans have, and it could be something where I don't really have these concerns, but I think it's something that very much needs to be addressed with the 276 batting average and 344 on base percentage. That just comes with a 108 WRC plus, 8% better than league average. And
so your 9 hole is 8% better than league average, and he's getting on base at 350, and he's almost a 300 hitter. Sign my ass up on that deal.
Okay, so let's continue with some of the talk. The reason why it is that low is because he is not a power hitter by any stretch of the imagination.
I don't care.
Casey, let me finish my talk. He's got, over the past 3 seasons, a sub 2% barrel percentage. Does not barrel up the baseball much at all. Hard hit percentage is about 20%. Does not hit for a lot of power. What potentially could concern me a little bit, or perhaps could move me in a little bit of a different direction, if you are prioritizing specifically hitters that can hit against right-handed pitching. The splits for Steven Kwan profile him as being a little bit above league average player against righties and lefties, meaning he's going to be a more full-time role. The past 3 seasons, 114 WRC plus against righties, which is above league average against righties, and a 94 WRC plus against left-handed pitching. Let me provide a little bit of context of the 114 WRC plus, because I think this will show you perhaps a little bit of caution with this. This puts him in the range of how good players like Miguel Rojas, Alex Call, and Tommy Edman are against left-handed pitching. They are a little bit above league average. They are 10 to 15 points above league average by WRC plus against left-handed pitching. They are against right-handed pitching. For Steven Kwan, that is what the advantage of what you're looking at against right-handed pitching. So if you believe in one, or if your main priority, I think if you're Steven Kwan, if you want someone to pursue Steven Kwan, you're looking at 2 main priorities, and this is what you want to address. One is fixing the outfield defense. He will go a long way towards fixing the outfield defense. It does not move Andy Pages to the corner outfield. It keeps Teoscar Hernandez in right field, but boy, does left and center field get a whole lot better with Steven Kwan on your roster. And number 2, it provides an insane amount of contact to your roster. The Dodgers clearly have had interest in Steven Kwan in the past. If those are your 2 main priorities to fixing this roster, Steven Kwan would go a long ways towards being able to address that. It just comes to a question, is he the best fit to be able to do that? And is he the profile of player that you're looking for? Or is there another option that's close to the profile that could address a little bit of different needs? And how does somebody like them adding Ryan Ward to the roster perhaps complicate things?
Doesn't at all for me, because he's your 9 hole in front of Shohei. He fills in the need that you need in this offense, which is a guy that'll get on base in front of Shohei, a high on base guy, a high bat to ball guy. Again, the Dodgers hit 24 home runs in 17 games in the postseason. He's an elite defender. And then with your margin guys, here's the biggest problem with Michael Conforto. He didn't do anything that the Dodgers actually needed him to do in terms of fit-wise. So what the Dodgers actually need is they need a left-handed stick that hits right-handed pitching really well.
Yes.
They already have Andy Pages, hits left-handed pitching very well.
Yep.
Teo Hernandez, left-handed pitching very well. Alex Cole is kind of split on both, but he didn't really get enough playing time, really kind of determined.
He's better in the past 3 seasons against lefties, 114 against lefties.
So the way that I am looking at that is that's going to give the Alex Call and Steven Kwan are very similar, okay? One's right-handed, one is left-handed. I think Steven Kwan's a little bit better. He's a little bit better upgrade than Alex Call overall as a player. So if you go get Steven Kwan, Alex Call's liable to hit 300 because he's going to platoon a little bit with Quan, and he's only going to play against the guys that are the best matchups for him. That allows you to control some of the variables that might lead to some regression from Stephen Kwan. And Stephen Kwan's only 28 years old, Austin. And he's only on contract this year and next year.
Yep.
Regression happens at 31, 32, 33. So if you're going to come at me with, I don't want Stephen Kwan because of possible regression, I'm going to say, well, okay, I don't disagree with you, but that's 3 or 4 years down the road. So when you look at all the different, now, again, I'm all about go get the best player first. The best player is Kyle Tucker. So my first goal is offer whatever it is that you can offer Kyle Tucker, make him say no, and then at that point you go from, okay, well, I can't get the best player. Now I need to go get the best fit. So a guy like Jaron Duran, right? So he's not going to be as good against right-handers, A. And B, he's got almost a 25% strikeout rate, okay? He has another guy. If you're going to do that, just go get Luis Robert Jr. and be done with it, okay? And just go on down that road. That's not what the Dodgers need. So at the very least, even with, if you don't get the best player, if you get the guy that fits, even if that guy's not a great player, like even if Michael Conforto wasn't a great player, if he could have at least hit right-handed pitchers at a level that was better than all the other outfielders that the Dodgers had the ability to do, even if he hit 0-0-0 against lefties, but say hit 270 against righties and had a WRC plus of 108, which you say of Stephen Kwan, against right-handers, even as bad as he was, that still would have been a role that the Dodgers would have been able to make very, very valuable, and he would have been on the postseason roster, and in a way that none of us would have understood actually helped that roster. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, all of that makes sense. What complicates things at least a little bit, structurally wise, and perhaps this is just a little bit more of a strategic move, or perhaps this is something where we get into a real conversation about the state of Major League Baseball and things that need to change. If you go out and get a Kyle Tucker, or if you go out there and get a Stephen Kwan, or if you get somebody that's more of an exclusive corner outfielder, and let's assume that the Dodgers hold on to Andy Pages and Teoscar Hernandez, the person that they just added onto the roster is Ryan Ward. That completely screws Ryan Ward in this scenario. That would keep him down at the AAA level for this year, for potentially next year, if they decide to hold on to him as a player. And what makes that situation so unique is Ryan Ward was not going to be eligible for the Rule 5 draft. He was set to enter into minor league free agency, which means he was destined to be able to sign with any other major league organization or any other international league that was going to give him the best offer. The Dodgers decided, hey, we want him to hold on to him specifically, which means that if you go out and get somebody like a Stephen Kwan, that sends Ryan Ward to AAA unless you decide to release him and say, never mind, we're not going to hold on to him.
I love Wardo, but that can't be the determining factor. You got to put the best player. You got to fill out the best roster. Sorry, Wardo.
Yes. And I agree with that. But the organization also has a responsibility to do right by Wardo.
No, they don't. They have a responsibility to put the best roster and the most amount of depth on in the roster.
I think the organization still needs to do right by a lot of those players. Perhaps this is more of a selfish thing for the players, and I know that
he's going to get paid. I mean, he's on the 40-man now. He's going to make more money than he was.
He's going to make more money than what he was. I don't think it's going to come close to if he received another big-time role with either another international league or for another organization if he doesn't actually make the major league roster. I think there is a difference in the financial incentives if you're on the 40-man roster, but you're not in the major league roster, versus if you are in some other organization if you're on the major league roster.
If you're on the 40-man roster, okay?
Yes.
You are much more valuable in a trade scenario because – your organization just made a loud statement that we believe in this guy enough to put him to the most valuable 40-man roster spot in baseball, the Dodgers 40-man roster. It's damn hard to get on that roster, right?
Yes.
I mean, the Dodgers have had great players get on and off that roster. So the Dodgers, I mean, it's not money for them. It's roster spots, especially 26-man. So to say that the Dodgers used one of their 40-man roster spots on Ryan Ward, that tells the Pittsburgh Pirates, hell, man, why don't we just go see if we can't go get that dude, see what he can do for us, right? So I think a large part of this in terms of putting the Ryan Ward on the 40-man roster. It hedges your bets because you have no first of all, a guy who Ryan Ward was the PCL MVP, okay?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's number one. Number two, he's the all-time home runs leader in the history of the Bricktown era. He's the all-time RBIs leader in the history of the Bricktown era. He hit the most amount of RBIs in the PCL since 2001, okay?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He had the most amount of total bases since 2010. I may have those last two backwards. So to say, hey, we're just going to let that guy go and get nothing in return, that's a pretty big kick in the face, right? I mean, that's pretty tough to stomach. So you put Ryan Ward on the 40-man roster. Meanwhile, you try to go get Kyle Tucker. You go try to get Stephen Kwan, Lars Nootbaar, somebody like that. And if you do, then you have made Ryan Ward more valuable in a trade scenario where maybe the Pittsburgh Pirates or somebody like that might want to take a chance on a Ryan Ward in that way. So I just see this. I don't see this as the Dodgers necessarily setting up playing time for Ryan Ward. I see this as them making him marketable to get something back for him where they weren't going to be able to if he left via free agency.
Okay, and if the plan for Ryan Ward is to market him and find some sort of trade partner to him to take advantage of his value, that's totally fair. I'm totally fine with that situation. It makes total sense by the organization. What does not make sense by the organization is saying, hey, Ryan Ward, you've hit a lot of home runs for Oklahoma City.
Yes.
Might as well make it a lot more and stick around for 3 more years because we've got you for the recontrol.
No, absolutely not.
And if you go ahead and sign guys to long-term deals like they had, that's essentially what you are saying to Ryan Ward with having him stick around on the roster, which means that there either has to be some sort of potential path for him to make the big league roster, or the organization should. It doesn't mean they have to. It doesn't mean that these incentives of Major League Baseball aren't setting up to where you keep Ryan Ward as depth, but they should find some sort of avenue for him to get an opportunity. Now, and this is something I went into on the show yesterday. What if there is a path where the Dodgers could do a lot of the same goals of which you have identified and try to go out and get somebody that had really good contact skills, that could get on base quite a bit?
You're going back into the fit category versus the best player. Can't get the best player, find the best fit. That's where you're headed here.
And I'm talking about somebody that is potentially a good fit for the Dodgers.
Lars Nootbaar's number 2 for me. Well, number 3, yeah.
Let me get into some of this talk right here. What if you could find somebody good contact, good on base skills, great against right-handed pitching? Not just good. I think Stephen Kwan is good against right-handed pitching. Somebody who's great against right-handed pitching, or has been great against right-handed pitching, and could present the opportunity to potentially have a competition.
Righties.
284,
784 OPS. Yeah,
I'm not talking about Lars Nootbaar.
I'm talking about Stephen Kwan. Stephen Kwan was damn good against right-handers. He wasn't kind of good. He was damn good against right-handers.
I'm talking about the overall scale of numbers, and I'm talking about WRC plus. And I'm not just looking at last year. I'm looking at the past 3 years and calculating the past 3 years. But what if the Dodgers could go out and target somebody good on base skills, good average, could go out there and really hit against right-handed pitching, good contact skills as well, meaning some of the same qualities that Stephen Kwan has, with just a little bit less on the defensive side, but still overall a really solid player. And what that could potentially present is some sort of competition between some of your younger players to be able to fight for a roster spot. And somebody who fits that exact same mold with 2 years of control, so the exact same timeline that Stephen Kwan has, to where you could implement some of your younger guys, but also has positional versatility, is somebody I mentioned on the show, probably towards the top of my list in targets. That's Brendan Donovan, teammate of Lars Nootbaar on the St. Louis Cardinals. Let me go through some of his numbers over the past 3 seasons for Brendan Donovan. The past 3 seasons, 282 batting average, 6 points higher than Stephen Kwan, 351 on base percentage. That's 7 points higher than what Stephen Kwan has. 420 slugging percentage. He played almost all left field in 2024. He is versatile to play left field and second base. Those are his 2 main positions that he has played throughout his career. So you can have him either as a left fielder or a second baseman. You look at his numbers against right-handed pitching, 131 WRC plus, which means that he's a potentially better platoon option that you can have with Alex Call. You look at his walk percentage and his strikeout percentages. Walk percentages is about 8%, about 1% less than Stephen Kwan. 13% strikeout percentage, which in the game of baseball, really low.
Yeah.
As a defender, he's going to be more about league average.
He basically is Stephen Kwan.
He has a
that
lot
can play
of the
second
same
base.
He has a lot of the same profiles of Stephen Kwan, but
I'm going for fit, which means profile, right?
Yes,
the bat to ball, the high average, the good against righties, great defender, that kind of thing. You are giving me a more affordable Stephen Kwan.
I'm giving you an alternative to Stephen Kwan. Now, what this would present the Dodgers with the ability to do, especially with the addition of Ryan Ward,
you would know
because of Brendan Donovan's versatility in second base or left field. Guess what? There could be a three-way competition in spring training between Alex Freeland, Hae-Sung Kim, Ryan Ward. Then what you are doing is presenting those guys with the opportunity to fight for a roster spot. And what those guys could potentially do, one of those guys could earn a platoon role with Tommy Edman and be able to fight for either additional playing time at second base to get Tommy Edman out of a full-time role against right-handed pitching, in which he is not great at. And Ryan Ward, better against right-handed pitching, a plus 1,000 OPS against righties. Alex Freeland, better against right-handed pitching. Hae-Sung Kim, question still out, but I think they trust him a little bit better against right-handed pitching. What Brendan Donovan would allow you to do is it provides an impact bat against right-handed pitching, 131 WRC plus. Profile-wise, fits really well, while also adding some positional versatility on the field to be able to move around between second and left field. Here's some of the potential downside, and this is really the only potential downside that you could see in this pass, is defensively could be a potential downgrade, especially if you don't believe in the defense of Ryan Ward, and Ryan Ward wins the outfield spot if the only addition is somebody like a Brendan Donovan, in which case Brendan Donovan's at second base, Ryan Ward's in the outfield. Do you trust the defensive outfield of Ryan Ward, Andy Pages, and Teoscar Hernandez? If Ryan Ward is going to get a legitimate shot at making the big league roster, that means they at least are considering that a very realistic possibility, but profile-wise as a player, and I think fit-wise onto this roster, it achieves a lot of the same goals of what you are trying to address with a Stephen Kwan. I think it has slightly more upside in the power compartment, but even with that, just the on-base skills, just around the same as the Stephen Kwan. The bat-to-ball skills around the same as the Stephen Kwan, while also being able to move around defensively. I think this becomes a little bit of a better fit once the Dodgers decided to make the move to add Ryan Ward. If they are serious about considering him for a roster spot, which doesn't mean that you don't pursue other alternatives. And if you can get a Kyle Tucker, obviously he's a better player than a Ryan Ward, but this means that you could use somebody like Brendan Donovan to keep your options as open as possible, to also provide competition for the younger guys on the roster, while also not blocking the timeline of the guys in the system that are coming up. Brendan Donovan right now would probably be my top target, at least after they have made the move with Ryan Ward, and assuming that he is going to be around on the roster.
Who'd be more expensive, Donovan or Quan?
It's a really good question. Just looking at it, sounded like Cleveland was really trying to get as much as they possibly could out of Stephen Kwan, and I think they're going to know that that's going to be a need for the Dodgers. With the Cardinals, they're changing some of the general managership and some of the incentives of what they're trying to do. They're looking to get younger, and they're potentially looking to get some younger starting pitching that can be more long-term, or they're potentially looking to get more outfield help with guys like a Lars Nootbaar, who has 2 years left until he reaches free agency. Brendan Donovan, 2 years left until he reaches free agency. So there could be a good fit trade-wise as far as the excess pieces that the Dodgers have with some of the starting pitching depth and with the outfield that they have. Price-wise, my guess is they're probably relatively the same for both teams. Brendan Donovan, again, top of the order type of player for the Cardinals. Same thing with Stephen Kwan. Both really solid players and would be great fits and additions. Slightly different, but very similar in a lot of the things that they do.
I'm a pretty heavy no on Harrison Bader. I know he's a good defender, and he had a good year offensively this last year. But to me, that was an outlier. If you want to talk about regression, you would definitely be able to talk me into there's definitely regression coming to the offensive game of
Harrison Bader.
Of Harrison Bader, because this last year was the outlier. The 2 years before that, he was not a good offensive player. So to me, if you're going to go get a Harrison Bader, let's just play Alex Call. Let's just play Ryan Ward. I also want Ha-Seong Kim to be the everyday second baseman. I want Tommy Edman, if he's healthy, to go back into being the super utility role. I want Miguel Rojas to be in a utility role. Kike Hernandez to be in a utility role as far as an outfielder goes. And so I am out on Harrison Bader. I just don't. I think he's going to regress offensively.
Okay. Couple of things right there with Harrison Bader. One, if you look at his numbers over the past last season, really good season. He broke out after he was traded, which I was expecting some sort of regression. Mm-hmm. Defensively, incredibly solid. Your goal with getting Harrison Bader would be, I do not want Andy Pages playing center field. I want Harrison Bader playing center field. And if that is your goal, free agent wise, there isn't a whole lot of options that can play center field. It's Cody Bellinger. It's maybe a Trent Grisham, although his defense has faded a little bit. It's Harrison Bader and Cedric Mullins. Harrison Bader and Cedric Mullins have real questions about their offensive profile. Harrison Bader more specifically because last year seemed to be more of an anomaly. If you look at the past 3 seasons, 95 WRC plus. And that's taken into account a career year for him. The expected numbers are not good at all. Expected batting average, expected slugging, and expected weighted on base average over the past 3 seasons, 235, 379, 297 expected weighted on base average is way below league average for Harrison Bader, meaning the contact quality past 3 seasons, not the greatest. I would not go out of my way initially with Harrison Bader, and he doesn't solve the issue of hitting against right-handed pitching. The only thing that he would solve is moving Andy Pages to right field and potentially moving Teoscar Hernandez to left field. That's really the only role that he would potentially have. So I don't think that's the best scenario for the Dodgers to be able to pursue at this point. Talented player, great year for him last year. But I don't think that's okay. The other thing that I want to address, and this is the complicated factor, especially when bringing back, if you want to bring back both Miguel Rojas and a Kike Hernandez, assuming Alex Call is on the roster, you have room for one addition. That means a Brendan Donovan or a Steven Kwan or somebody else, which means that if you add in one of these guys, there's no room for a Ha-Seong Kim. There's no room for an Alex Freeland on the roster, which means that if you want Alex Freeland, Ha-Seong Kim, Ryan Ward to have a chance to be able to make it on the roster, I think it's more of either a Miguel Rojas or a Kike Hernandez at this point. That's just something to keep in mind as we go forward as to whether they should get both Miguel Rojas and Kike Hernandez. Are both of them necessary on this roster, or do you want to provide an avenue for some of the younger guys to be added to the mix?
So who are the 13 offensive players?
So the 13 offensive players, let me go through this list in just a second because I have, it's a good thing I have this spreadsheet with what I have right now. So let me talk through the 9 offensive players that are currently on the list right now. It's Ohtani, Smith, Betts, Edmund, Freeman, Muncy, Teoscar, Andy. And then I just put Ben Rortvedt right there. We can have a debate later, Ben Rortvedt versus Dalton Rushing. I don't think this is the show for that, but it's going to be one of those
Either
two.
way.
One of those two.
Yeah, we're just talking numbers right now.
Okay, so that's 9. If you add in Alex Call, that's 10. Miguel Rojas is 11. Kike Hernandez is 12. That leaves you room for one more for your 13 position players. That's without adding any sort of outfielder or Brendan Donovan type player to your mix to complete the roster, which means no Ha-Seong Kim, no Alex Freeland, no Ryan Ward on the roster.
Yeah, Ha-Seong Kim to me is the everyday second baseman starting next year. I give him the second base position and I say, hey, become the everyday second baseman from now on, Ha-Seong Kim. So I think whenever you start figuring out who you want, what you want to do, and what you want your 26-man roster and your 13 position players to look like, I would start with Ha-Seong Kim as my everyday second baseman.
And I think that's fair. I think there should be some sort of competition, though. I don't want to air somebody as the throne or air somebody as this is going to be the guy. I think you want to create a little bit of competition or at least create some sort of intrigue in spring training, even if it's more of a just for spring training storyline type wise, but give a reason for guys to be able to compete. Give a reason for guys to be able to fight for roster spots, because at the end of the day, that's all that these younger guys can really ask for, is a way in a fight to get a fair shot at a roster spot, which I think creating somebody and getting somebody like Brendan Donovan, who opens up avenues both in left field and second base. I think that's one of the great things that he is able to do, is he doesn't just limit that to a Hae-Sung Kim versus Alex Freeland fight. It also opens up to a third player as well to be able to fight into the mix, which creates great competition that also creates and be able to turn to that guy and give him a fair shot and opportunity to be able to succeed. And then you hope that one of those guys is able to stick at the big league level and be able to find a consistent role against right-handed pitching.
Okay, so what I want you to do right now, Austin.
You got it.
Go ahead and break down Ryan Ward from a statistical perspective, if you don't mind.
All right, so this is the biggest thing with Ryan Ward, and I talked a little bit about this on the show yesterday. The biggest thing that kind of frustrates me about Ryan Ward is the fact, and it's true to a certain extent, but that Ryan Ward has been eligible for the Rule 5 draft, and nobody has taken Ryan Ward specifically because the teams don't want him. Ryan Ward is a very different player than what he has been over the past couple of seasons. And he has spent the past 3 seasons in Oklahoma City. So we have year by year comparisons of how he's been able to grow. And this is, I think, the best way to be able to measure just how good he is, because he's been eligible after each one of these seasons, not including this season, for the Rule 5 draft each and every single year. So looking at the numbers of what he had first year in AAA Oklahoma City, 234, 324, 424 is his triple slash line with an 83 WRC plus. He hit 21 home runs, but it was more of a struggle for Ryan Ward. 11% walk percentage, 25.5% strikeout percentage. Ryan Ward struggled in 2023 at the AAA level, 83 WRC plus. No teams took him in the Rule 5 draft. 2024, his second year in Oklahoma City, he started to turn things around a little bit better. 258, 317, 543, 33 home runs, and a 108 WRC plus. But still, 108 WRC plus at the AAA level. No teams decided to take him in the Rule 5 draft. Remember, the Rule 5 draft, you have to keep this player on your roster for the entirety on your 26-man roster, the entirety of the season. So what you saw, 25-point increase in his WRC plus numbers from 2023 to 2024 at the AAA level. Then we go to last year, and this is where we saw the breakout of Ryan Ward, and this is where the Dodgers looked at him and said, I don't know if we can pass up on a player with this type of talent, because Ryan Ward put up a 290 batting average, 380 on base percentage with a 557 slugging, a 132 WRC plus for Ryan Ward last year with 36 home runs, a near 13% walk percentage, and a sub 19% strikeout percentage.
Right.
Incredible for him. He was dominant against right-handed pitching, a 1.038 OPS against right-handed pitching. Absolutely phenomenal. You look at his in-zone contact quality, it went up dramatically from about 81% to 87% last year. Out-of-zone contact went up about 6% as well last year. He started making more contact. He started chasing a lot less, and he started to he continued to slug the baseball while also being able to draw more consistent walks. He transformed himself as an offensive player, which means the Ryan Ward of Rule 5 drafts past is different than the Ryan Ward now, because he has made his game just that much better. And that is why when you look at the Pacific Coast League MVP with the numbers that he puts up, he is very much deserving of a big league opportunity or some sort of professional opportunity, which means if he is around in this organization, if he's around the team, it is reasonable to say that the organization thinks very highly enough to say that he is ready enough to earn a spot on the big league roster. So it's a question for the Dodgers. Are they going to provide a path for him to earn a spot on the big league roster? If they add an exclusive outfielder, and you have Andy Pages and Teoscar Hernandez, there's going to be no path unless he's a fourth outfielder with Alex Call, which the benefit of Alex Call as a fourth outfielder, he can be a little bit more used to not playing every single day, and he plays a little bit better defense than what Ryan Ward has, a lot more versatility that you have there. with Ryan Ward. I think the avenue for him going forward is some sort of potentially earning a platoon role in the outfield with an Alex Call, which, especially with the numbers that Ryan Ward has put up at the AAA level, his OPS against right-handed pitching, his power potential, and with his increased and just dramatically improved bat-to-ball skills and eye on the ball, he could make for a really solid platoon hitter at the major league level.
Yeah, he put in a two-strike approach this last year. He spread out and really just tried to shoot the ball in between shortstop and third base as a ground ball and a line drive. And that's why he's in the 18s as far as strikeout percentage. Yeah. So we have a comment here, Schwarber light? I know people he's a better hitter than Jock Peterson as far as bat to ball and strikeout and not selling out to just trying to hit the ball as far as you possibly can. Because you got to remember, Jock Peterson played in Albuquerque in 2014. Peterson never played in Oklahoma City. I'll tell you another thing that's very impressive about Ryan Ward is that when you look at Albuquerque or Reno or Tacoma or even Salt Lake, those are launching pads because, it's in high elevation, right? Mm-hmm. Ryan Ward does not play in a launching pad. He plays in Oklahoma City, and especially for a left-hander. Ryan Noda was about 2 weeks in, Noda was like, I hate this stadium, not because it's not beautiful, because it's 718 feet to right center. So for a left-hander in Oklahoma City that's not high elevation, to put up the numbers that he did and then pair that with the 18 whatever strikeout rate, it's one of the most impressive seasons that ever, and I'm not exaggerating, ever you will see out of a minor league player, to the point to where the Dodgers just couldn't turn their backs on that. They just couldn't say, okay, dude, well, I guess we're just not going to get anything out of you. They just couldn't do it, and you can't blame them for that. And so if you wanted to not go the trade route and make a platoon between an Alex Call and a Ryan Ward, then have an Alex Freeland or somebody have an opportunity for him. Hey, I'm great with that. I'm just covering the aspects of, you're in the middle of a dynasty, okay? Yeah. You're in the middle of the peak years of Shohei Ohtani. You're on the back end of Mookie Betts, to where 2 or 3 years from now, you don't know what Mookie Betts is going to look like, especially offensively. You don't know what Freddie Freeman's going to look like in a couple years. You don't know if Max Muncy's going to be on the roster past this year. You have no idea what kind of offense Teo is going to give you, say, 2 years from now, right? So you have the window, especially in the game of baseball, that's so unpredictable. This window can be a lot smaller than you ever think it's going to be. Hell, the Cubs with Chris Bryant in that group, they thought they were going to win like 6 of them, and they won 1, right? Yep. So this is an opportunity. You have to strike when the iron is hot. And I say that to say, that doesn't suggest that you go with a minor league guy that you've overlooked and you've jumped over for, hell, he's been in the system since 2018 or 19. Mm-hmm. He's put up numbers like this in the past at Tulsa before he got hurt and stuff like that. The Dodgers system, just go back to my Chris Gutierrez interview last year. Gutierrez, one of the third base coach for Triple Oklahoma City, he point blank tell you, I have no idea why this guy's not in the major leagues by somebody other team, right?
Yeah.
So they've known about him for a long time. So I say all that to say, this window doesn't feel like, okay, well, we're just going to turn this thing over to a guy that's been in our system forever, and we've just leaped past him, and we just all of a sudden have an epiphany. You see what I'm saying?
I would say that is true. However, when you are trying to find sustained success, sometimes these are the difficult moves that you have to do in order to sustain that run, sustain that success. Because the goal of the Dodgers, yes, is to maximize on the Shohei Ohtani era of Dodgers baseball, especially when he's in their prime. Mm-hmm. And they certainly are going to do what they can to make the team as good as possible. And I'm certainly encouraging them to get a good, solid impact fit bat for this order. And I think there is a lot of good options that they could turn to. And certainly this is a good use of trade assets to go ahead and address that specific area. They also need to find guys to be able to provide sustained success, which comes with having some of the younger players to be able to step into the mold. So yes, it is true. Right now is the dynasty of Dodgers baseball. We're right in the middle of the Dodgers dynasty area. And there's no guarantee that there's going to be another Dodgers World Series for the next 5, 10, 20, 30, 50 years. So you want to do what you can to take advantage of this opportunity. You also want to present yourself with as many opportunities to be able to win as many championships as possible. That is the calculus. How do you integrate young talent into this roster to extend the window, extend the opportunity to have future World Series championships while also being able to maximize on the current window that you have? That's the challenge. I think it requires you to have at-bats set aside for some of the younger players, that it requires you to be able to come up with younger talent, because if you skip out on adding some of the younger talent into the mix, what you're going to do is very quickly age out of your roster.
Yes.
And I don't want that to happen. I want it to be as long of a window as possible while also trying to grab as much upside as possible. So as long as the Dodgers are able to add an offensive piece that can help this roster, especially against right-handed pitching,
yes,
I should say, while also being able to supplement it and add additional guys that get a lot of playing time with an Andy Pages, who's young, a part of this roster, and who's going to be a part of the organization for an additional 5 years, and somebody that can really help be an offensive piece if they want to develop a Hae-Sung Kim on this roster, or if they want to develop an Alex Freeland, understanding that Max Muncy is going to be off the roster in a couple of years. One of those guys is able to develop into being more of a regular big league role. I think creating paths and opportunity, or even if it's Ryan Ward, presenting him with the path and an opportunity to at least fight for some sort of playing time, could be a intentional choice that the Dodgers do that could create some short-term confusion, some short-term pain, but could really pay off in the long term, because it's not necessarily about, hey, this guy right now is the best player possible, but he could be a better option and the best option that we could have going forward for the Dodgers to extend the window as long as possible.
Here's kind of another, just kind of goes against Ryan Ward thing. How old is Stephen Kwan?
Stephen Quan, that's a good question. Let me look up in just a second. See, he's got to be
like 28.
27, 28, something like that.
How old is Brendan Donovan?
Brendan Donovan
28.
right now is going to be entering into his age 29 season.
Okay, so he's 28 right now, right?
Yeah.
How old is Ryan Ward?
Ryan Ward's about 28.
So, I mean, like when you say young guys, you got to realize the Dodgers take so long to get these guys up to the major leagues, and almost everybody in their system is either an international guy, so they're really young, like Andy Pages.
Yep.
Or if they're American, they're college guys, so they're really old. And so by the time a Landon Knack or a Kyle Hurt, hell, you think they're the young guys, and we need to turn this over, we need to get younger. Well, hell, these guys are older than the guys you're going to get in free agency, because the Dodgers just didn't give them a chance when they were 24, 25. They waited till they were 27 or 28 years old. Yep. So even if you do go with Ryan Ward over a Stephen Kwan or over, I think Kyle Tucker's 29 maybe?
Something like that. Yeah, I think he's entering age 29 season.
So it's not like Ryan Ward is he's not making you any younger from Stephen Young or Brendan Donovan, maybe 6 months, right?
Yeah.
He's making you very much littler younger in terms of like a Kyle Tucker.
Yep.
Okay. So if your youth movement is your idea, Ryan Ward's not the guy. If the youth movement's your idea, then you go get a stopgap until you get to Josue De Paula, Zaire Hope, Mike Sirota, Eduardo Quintero, Chris Newell, Zach Earhart, James Tibbs III, Damon Keith. If the idea is youth movement, or even a Jose Ramos, who had a good year last year, if youth movement's your idea, it's one of those guys, not Ryan Ward.
Yes. But also Ryan Ward could potentially be the best stopgap option that they could have, and while also presenting him with the opportunity to be able to get big league experience. It depends on how they actually view Ryan Ward, how the actual price wears out, because with adding Ryan Ward, I don't think that prevents you from adding some of the younger talent that's coming up through the system. As you mentioned, Josue De Paula, Zaire Hope, a Mike Sirota, Eduardo Quintero, a Zach Earhart, a James Tibbs III, a Chris Newell, a Damon Keith, a so on and so forth, because there's so many of these outfielders.
Don't forget my boy Cole Myers.
Kendall George, who I didn't even mention, who had a phenomenal season.
Cole Myers.
Cole Myers, who is phenomenal. We can add so many of these different guys. I don't think Ryan Ward completely prevents you from blocking all of that, because you could also utilize him in some sort of trade piece going forward if you decide some of the younger guys are going to be part of the mix. So I think he fits right into that Stephen Kwan / Brendan Donovan / Lars Nootbaar, that shorter term window, as opposed to going out and signing a long-term contract to a Kyle Tucker or a Cody Bellinger, who are likely going to require Cody Bellinger probably a 4 or 5 year deal at least. Kyle Tucker likely a 8 to 12 year type of deal, mega deal that he's probably going to be looking for as much security, because he's a really good baseball player, and that's what really good baseball players are trying to get at this point of their career. So if you want to create an avenue opening for some of the younger talent to be able to have a youth movement starting after the 2027 season, starting around 2028, which is when I think a lot of these guys are going to be the most ready that they could be, and will be eligible now for the Rule 5 draft. So they'll have to make a decision on some of these guys at that point, a lot of them after the 2027 season. I think that's when you can start to really see a youth movement in the outfield. So that makes the decision of who you go out to get that much more important, because Andy Pages will likely be around. Teoscar Hernandez will be at the end of his deal. And if you get a guy with a couple more years like a Stephen Kwan, Brendan Donovan, Lars Nootbaar, they have, I believe, 2 years of control, which really opens up your options if you're the Dodgers.
It does. I just don't see where Ryan Ward adds anything above what a Stephen Kwan or a Lars Nootbaar or a Brendan Donovan adds, other than he's cheaper, right? Which to me, that's not a, to me that okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the prospect capital, fine. I'm going to say this again. Mm-hmm. The Dodgers have more elite outfield talent. And then let me put this up here, Austin. Let me throw this up here. Let me.
Yeah. By the way, we didn't mention anybody who they got drafted, like a Charles Davlin or some of the younger guys that they brought up,
or Jaron Elkins, who led the Cal League in stolen bases, guys like that. So let me do this right here. Mm-hmm. Okay, let me kind of show you something here, and then if I can actually, hold on here, if I can get it up there, screen capture right here. Okay, so here, let me kind of show you exactly what I'm talking about. Here are all the different guys that are on 40-man rosters in the major leagues: Braden Fisher, Justin Brule, Ryan Noda, Miguel Vargas, Brian Hudson, Zach McKinstry, Jack Little, Trey Sweeney, James Outman, Yorbit Vivas, Luke Rady, Yordan Alvarez. That was a long time ago, and we've already covered that.
Yep.
Pepio DeLuca, Fiducia, Eben Uceda, people might forgot that, Garrett Clevenger. These are guys that aren't necessarily drafted by the Dodgers, but they came, at least they played in AAA Oklahoma City. Okay, Jock Peterson, Corey Seager, Josh Spores, Gus Varlin, Juan Murillo, Michael Bush, Gavin Lux, Stuart Baroa, Justin Hageman, O'Neill Cruz, Dennis Santana, Matt Gage, Justin Dean, Cabert Ruiz, Josiah Gray, Sauer Lau. So what that shows you there is most of these guys weren't top prospects. And then also whenever you add in Jack Dreyer, undrafted, Justin Robleski came out of absolutely nowhere to jump onto the prospect scene. Okay, Emmett Sheehan, when he threw his first pitch in 2022 after coming off the shoulder surgery, he was a nobody. He came out of the 6th round of Boston College, and I tried that whole first part of 2022 saying, hey, this blonde-headed dude, for a great, you remember Austin, this blonde-headed dude might have the best fastball of anybody in the entire system, and everybody's like, you're drunk, man. There's who? Emmett who?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, so what I'm trying to tell you is, first of all, the top prospect deal is in no way, shape, or form accurate. It's not even close to accurate. Just look at the 40-man roster guys that have been in the Dodgers system. So if you want to say, we can't give up top prospects, well, just look at the actual data and you'll realize that's an incorrect statement to make, for one. And for two, the other thing that this shows, Ryan Pepio was very good. Johnny DeLuca was very good. Okay, Yorbit Vivas was a good prospect. But you know what the Dodgers did, Austin? They covered those guys. Corey Seager was fantastic, but they got Trey Turner. Now they have Mookie Betts, right? The Dodgers covered those positions incredibly well and ended up in almost every single case better off than when they started. So what I'm trying to tell you is, if you go get a Stephen Kwan, I don't care how expensive they are. I mean, to an extent, right?
Yeah.
Or a Brendan Donovan, because that list I just showed you goes to show you that, just because they're a top prospect actually doesn't mean crap, okay? There's likely probably an outfielder somewhere that's way lower ranked. That's like a Zach Earhart. Okay, that's actually going to be better than all these guys that are ranked high. And two, the Dodgers have so much depth and so much redundancy. You could give away 3 of these outfielders, okay, and 3 or 4 pitchers, and it still just would not even put a dent into the ability of the Dodgers to cover who you gave away.
Yes, and I agree with a ton of your statement. And this is coming from somebody. Let's take it back to the trade deadline. I was extraordinarily hesitant for the Dodgers to go out and trade, particularly for a relief pitcher with the assets that they had. And the Dodgers replicated a lot of that. And Casey and I had a lot of discussion back and forth. To go out and get a piece like somebody who is going to be a really good option, like a Steven Kwan or like a Brendan Donovan, or somebody that can really help fit this roster, that's going to be a complete player, that's going to be somebody that's going to play almost every single day, that's a position player. This is where you make some of those investments with some of the assets that you have at the minor league level. And with the Dodgers' ability to go out and find and scout players. Remember last year, the Dodgers traded Gavin Lux for Mike Sirota. Mike Sirota was phenomenal for the Dodgers this past year. They have the ability to find, to scout, and be able to add talent to the system to where they can go out and make these types of trades. It doesn't mean they should be reckless with their maneuvers, but with it, in addition to Ryan Ward, they can be pick and choose the option that makes the most sense for them and feel like they can have realistic coverage in their system to be able to have enough depth to make a youth movement coming up in the future years actually happen. They have a lot of different options that they can turn to, and that is a testament to the Dodgers' patience, the Dodgers' ability to scout, to develop, and to the actual coaches and players that are part of the Dodgers system. There's a reason why the Dodgers are regarded as one of, if not the best farm system in the game of baseball, and that is because the Dodgers scout incredibly well, even though they do not have the resources to do so. Mm-hmm. That's because the coaches do an extraordinary job. Great job with the interview with Dylan DeShatka that was released earlier today. Absolutely phenomenal. Love that guy. They do amazing job coaching these guys, and for the players and talent, they buy into it and work as hard as they possibly can to make the organization and make themselves as good as possible. The organization does an extraordinary job with that. So when it comes to acquiring a player, position player or a starting pitching, those are the assets that I want to use the main trade pieces for. If you have somebody that's a great fit, that's going to make this roster even better, you use some of your pieces to go out and get that. And especially if you do not buy into the Kyle Tucker long-term, if you do not buy into Cody Bellinger long-term fitting the answers, you don't have to go down that path. You can go towards a shorter path and still have a lot of flexibility going 100%. Forward.
Okay, so if Kyle Tucker said, hey, I'll come to the Dodgers for certain incentives, backloaded this or that, whatever, deferred money, and I'll do it for 7 years, okay? Is Austin Brubaker accepting that?
For 7 years? Well, Kyle Tucker is a phenomenal player. I would be more inclined to very heavily consider a more 7-year type of deal. If it's anything more than that, then no. Yeah, right. They would be a little bit tricky, and this is just off the top of my head. I don't know if that's the best path. That would be more of a, hey, we're going to miss out on Freddie Freeman in 2 years, and we want an impact left-handed bat, and we believe that Kyle Tucker can be that impact left-handed bat once Freddie Freeman is gone, because his contract is done after 2 years. If that's the goal and that's the plan for Kyle Tucker, hey, you're going to fill into that, and we believe in your offensive ability going forward to take over that. I think a 7-year deal would be probably on the cusp in the range of what I would think would be acceptable, because that would be 29, 30, 31, 32, all the way to 35 would be what Kyle Tucker's contract would be. I think that would be more than appropriate for Kyle Tucker.
If the Dodgers offered 7 years and he was willing to take 7 years, you jump on that and you make him sign before he changes his mind. I don't think there's I might consider that. 7 years is the over-under for Kyle Tucker for me. Mm-hmm. If he takes 7 years, and it's a hard yes and it's a hard no, there's no in-between with Kyle Tucker. If he takes 7 years, I am an absolutely, let's get this thing done. Let's freaking go. Let's win 9 World Series. If it goes above 7 years, I am a hard out. And I'm like, no way. I'm not going. You already have Yamamoto. You already have Ohtani. You already have Betts. You already have Freeman. You already have Will Smith. You already have these really long contracts. And the only, as you've mentioned many times, the only way the Dodgers could not be competitive year in and year out is if you back yourself into a corner you can't get out of because you can't get out of long-term contracts, right? Yes. The Dodgers, as long as they have flexibility, they're going to have a chance to win a World Series every year. Long-term contracts eat away at that flexibility, and they already borderline have an uncomfortable amount of long-term contracts as it is. So, Bruce, here's the problem with Kyle Tucker. He's not going to take 7 years. Because he's going to get 10, 11, somewhere like that from somebody else. It only takes one other team to offer him that, and they will because he is worth it. He is absolutely that good, especially for a team that doesn't have a Shohei Ohtani. They need their Shohei Ohtani, and he can be, like you were talking about, he can be that replacement to Freddie Freeman. Well, another team might not have a Freddie Freeman, and so they need their Freddie Freeman now. Yeah. So that's why they would offer him that 10 years. So I don't see any world where Kyle Tucker takes 7 years. So I think you offer him, you make him say no. I think it's almost guaranteed he will. Yeah. And then at that point, here's my question for you. I don't give a crap if Brendan Donovan can play second base. That is irrelevant to me because you already have either Miguel Rojas or Kike Hernandez and Ha-Seong Kim. I want to be the everyday second baseman. So the versatile piece with Brendan Donovan is really a zero factor for me. I want the best left fielder. I want the best fit in terms of offensive player for what can help this team score more runs in a postseason setting. Which one do you take which one do you take between Brendan Donovan and Stephen Kwan if it comes down to those two?
If it comes down to those two, which to keep in mind, I care about the versatility. I think that's an important asset.
Eliminate that though. Just eliminate that. Just only go left field.
If I'm eliminating that aspect, I still very slightly like Brendan Donovan.
Okay.
The one potential deal breaker in that is if you are exclusively playing them in left field, Stephen Kwan is a much better left fielder than Brendan Donovan is left fielder. He would make the defense that much more better. I like the versatility, so that's a little bit of more of makes me lean one direction in that aspect. If you're just taking those two players, Stephen Kwan and Brendan Donovan, saying you are playing left field exclusively, I think it's a complete toss-up. And I think it's whether you want a little bit more power or you want to have better defense. I think that is some of that because offensive wise, they're going to be very similar as a player. They're going to do a lot of the similar things very, very well. The one big difference with them specifically in left field, Stephen Kwan is a better defender than Brendan Donovan.
If it's just comes down to just left field, I think it's a slam dunk at Stephen Kwan, and that's exactly where I'm at on that. I think he's a better left fielder. I think they have very similar, although you made a tremendous case for Brendan Donovan. Now, if you want to go overall, and if you want to value the versatility, which you already have Tommy Edman, I mean, I don't see why you need another guy that has that versatility. I don't see where that really helps you.
I think. Let me push back just slightly, and then I'll let you get the conclusion. Get that conclusion thought on there. I think there's some versatility, but it comes specifically with versatility when I'm looking at guys that can hit against right-handed pitching well. Yes. Brendan Donovan fits in that mix, but then you have to find some sort of way to be able to fit some of the other guys in the mix, either Alex Freeland, Ha-Seong Kim, or a Ryan Ward. And I think with Brendan Donovan, he allows you with any of those, whoever is the best hitter. It doesn't matter who those are. You allow the best of those to be able to achieve, and any of one of those can hit against right-handed pitching well. And then against left-handed pitching, you could have guys like Miguel Rojas, guys like an Alex Call, guys like a Tommy Edman, who, by the way, all of those guys over the past 3 seasons won 10 WRC plus or better against left-handed pitching. They would all be extraordinarily really solid and would contribute to less strikeouts as an offensive unit. And so I think you can platoon that really well. And what the reason why I still value the versatility is because Ryan Ward is part of that mix. It creates an avenue for, if he is significantly better than Alex Freeland and Ha-Seong Kim as an offensive player going forward, and you are fine with some of the defense on the field, I think that creates an avenue for you to potentially put up a best roster possible on the team.
Yeah. We have a question. What about Munetaki Murakami? I'm a hard no on him. Way too much swing and miss, way too many variables that you go, I'm not quite sure how that translates to Major League pitching. So I'm a hard no Munetake Murakami. Okay, so no Kyle Tucker. You get too squeamish on Stephen Kwan or Brendan Donovan. You're like, I just can't give up a Zaire Hope. I can't give up a Emmett Sheehan or whoever it may take to okay, right, fair. I'm of the opinion that the next best fallback is Lars Nootbaar. Again, I'm going with fit. I'm going with the guy that plays the type of offense and defense that I want, that I think actually helps this Dodgers roster the most, not just the best player. I'm out on Jarren Duran because I don't like that 24.5% strikeout rate. Same reason for like a Luis Robert Jr., guys like that. And I'm out on Cody Bellinger just because it's just hard to go back home, man. Cody Bellinger, to me, succeeded because he left the Dodgers. He wanted to do things his way. The Dodgers wanted him to do things a certain way. He had his way of doing things. I love Cody Bellinger. I think the change of scenery is why he was able to recuperate his career. And so for that factor, I want Cody Bellinger to go be the greatest version of Cody Bellinger he can have, and I want the Dodgers to move on. I just think the two are oil and water right now.
Yep, I would probably agree with that. The biggest concern with Cody Bellinger, besides the personal aspect with his history in Los Angeles, has to do with the fact that, man, there are some really concerning numbers, especially in the power component that Cody has. This is something that I've addressed when talking about him. A sub 7% barrel percentage and a 34% hard hit percentage of free agent outfielders. The hard hit percentage is the worst among the options. Right. His barrel percentage is among the worst. I think third worst of the, 14 different options, 14 or 15 different options that I have. There's concerns about his power. You look at his expected weighted on base versus his actual weighted on base average for the past 3 seasons, 25 points worse for his expected than what his actual results are, which means that I think that some sort of regression is likely coming for Cody Bellinger. And if you're looking at a 5 for $30 million a year for Cody Bellinger, which is likely somewhere within the range of possibilities that he's going to be able to get, and with somebody who's a better hitter against lefties than righties, which is not what the Dodgers need. They need guys that can really hit against right-handed pitching, which, by the way, Cody Bellinger, his WRC plus against right-handed pitching is worse than Stephen Kwan's. So over the past 3 seasons. So I don't think Cody Bellinger is the greatest fit. I think you're probably right with Lars Nootbaar. Really good player. He's more of an on-base type of guy. He's going to draw a ton of walks, 12.5% walk percentage over the past 3 seasons. Does not chase, doesn't get a whole lot of whiff. Solid defender, about league average as a defender. Going to put the ball in play. He is somebody who's likely going to miss a little bit of time at the beginning of the season. So that's something you have to keep in mind.
That's an advantage because that gives Ward a runway.
It gives Ward a little bit of runway. 2 years of control left for Lars Nootbaar. If you're looking for more of those guys, if you're like, hey, we're moving down the option and we need somebody that can hit against right-handed pitching, you're moving down some of the list. You don't like Jarren Duran because of some of the swing and miss stuff. Well, this guy kind of has a little bit of the swing and miss stuff, but really solid hitter against right-handed pitching. If you're just looking for a 1-year option and you don't feel comfortable with Ryan Ward, I think I sent you a text message about this maybe about a month or so ago and said, like, hey, might be an underrated option. They're going to pursue Kyle Tucker, but they're going to turn to this guy. Mike Yastrzemski is really good against right-handed pitching.
Everything you said made total sense, man. You made a great case for Yastrzemski. I was like, damn, that's – because when he first said his name, I was like, Austin, you're drunk. And I was like, oh, snap, man.
Yes. And this is somebody that I had mentioned during the part 2 of the Welcome to the Offseason video. His on the surface numbers don't look great, but over the past 3 seasons, 120 WRC plus against right-handed pitching. Among free agent outfielders, that's the second best, only behind Kyle Tucker. And this could be somebody that you get in a 1-year deal. Defensively, actually a really solid player, especially by defensive run saved, can draw a decent amount of walks. Good, solid power numbers for him as well. He's not going to be the greatest signing. And with adding Ryan Ward to the roster, I think this really complicates him being a good fit onto the roster. Yeah. But if you were looking for, and this was what I said, if you're looking to trade, if you were looking for, hey, we're looking to trade Ryan Ward, but we want to make this a veteran type roster. And we want to trade for somebody like a Brendan Donovan. Donovan, you play second base, but we are not comfortable enough with our bats against right-handed pitching. We want to add another guy. And just sign a 1-year deal doesn't take into account the long-term consideration. I think there is potentially a path, and this is only if the Dodgers decided to trade Ryan Ward, where you're like, hey, let's bring in Brendan Donovan to play second base, 131 against right-handed pitching, and we add Mike Yastrzemski, 120 WRC plus against right-handed pitching. Mike Yastrzemski would be an exclusive platoon bat with Alex Call because Mike Yastrzemski cannot hit left-handed pitching basically to save his life. 57 WRC plus against left-handed pitching. It would be an exclusive platoon bat for him. Those are some of the options as you go down the list, which what the Dodgers have, especially since they have Ryan Ward as part of their mix. One of the benefits of that, you have options. And if Stephen Kwan is costing too much and they look at the cost-benefit analysis for that type of trade and like, no, I don't really like that, they can go down each one of these lists and ultimately make the decision to say, you know what? We're going to go with Ryan Ward, and we're going to wait out some of these guys. And we believe that we can find some sort of deal or develop some of these guys to make them become the players that are going to be similar enough to the talent that each one of these guys has.
Okay, so we've got about 3 minutes here. Bo Bichette's going to want 8 years. So there's no way you're going to give Kyle Tucker 10 and Bo Bichette 8. That's 18 freaking years of pinning yourself in a contract. And Bo Bichette, great name, great player.
Yeah.
He has injury concerns. He always has a nagging injury, this or that or this or that. You have to be very concerned about the type of defense he's going to play at shortstop, what position is. Now, if you want to say, hey, maybe play second base next year, then he takes over third base for Max Muncy. Okay, I could start listening to that, but keep in mind he's never played third base. We don't even know if he's willing to do that kind of deal. So, hey, I'm not saying that it's Bo Bichette's not a great player. I'm just saying for the type of commitment you would have to give a Bo Bichette, the amount of years you'd have to give him, the amount of money, there's way too many buts in that scenario for me.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing for me. If you look, and this is particularly as a defensive player, Bo Bichette is graded out as below average each and every single year, or pretty consistently, whether you look at defensive run saves, outs above average, or fielding run value. And this is with him playing exclusively at the shortstop position. I know he played second base in the World Series, but he has exclusively played the shortstop position, which means you'd also be paying for a shortstop, which means that paying for a shortstop a lot more expensive than what it is to pay for a second baseman, even if you're planning on utilizing him at second base, which means that you're paying more premium. And also looking at the profile of Bo Bichette, he is very much more of a bat-to-ball type of player. He's going to look for a lot of base hits, and he's extraordinary at that. He has been exceptional as a hitter, and some of the profile that he has also suggests with a lower walk percentage, about 5 to 6%. Would that fit really well with some of the other Dodgers that have low walk percentage? Good question to be able to add to the mix. Also talking about Bo Bichette, and this is when signing him to a long-term contract, if you have concerns with him defensively as a player, which right now is defensively at the shortstop position, I don't know how he grades out at either second or third base because we don't have the numbers to be able to back that out. That would require a ton of trust in the Dodgers organization to say, hey, this guy's going to be a good defensive player at either of those positions. Based on the numbers we have, I can only assume that he's probably going to be at least slightly below average defender because that's what his career suggests, potentially even below league average, which means if he's a below league average defender, he has to get base hits. And what happens as you get older? Your bat starts to fall off a little bit. And as his bat starts to fall off a little bit, that adds to a lot of the aging problems that the Dodgers have.
Correct.
I think that is the biggest concern because Bo Bichette as a player has to get those base hits. He has to make good quality of contact. And another thing with Bo Bichette, 2024, he put up a 70 WRC plus. That at least is a little bit alarming, even if that was dealing with some sort of injury, because that shows some of the potential downside if things don't go right for Bo Bichette, is that contract could potentially turn really bad, even if the intention is this is going to be the guy that's going to replace Max Muncy eventually.
Our chat is so smart. They are on it, like the long-term contract thing. I love, most fans are like, go get this guy. Go get this guy. They want the shine. Our fans are so smart here at Dodgers Dawgs, Austin. They understand the whole big picture here, and that's why I just love communicating. Okay, so lightning around here, we got about a minute and a half. Okay, would you rather see the Dodgers go big in free agency and give up the years and money, or would you rather see them go the trade route and give up prospects? I know which way I would go. I'm heavily favoring. I'd rather give the expensive prospects than the expensive long-term contract.
Okay. With relief pitchers, I'm going with free agency. With the other aspects, I'd rather go trade.
Why would you want to go longer-term contracts than free agency?
Well, that is specifically
as
with
far
relief,
as far as relief pitchers.
And when it comes to relief pitchers, that's because I think you shouldn't trade valuable assets for the relief pitchers. Now, it's not to say
you also shouldn't sign them to long-term contracts like Edwin Diaz, right?
I was about to get to that, because that doesn't mean go out and get an Edwin Diaz, because there's a lot of different options that you could sign for maybe 2-year type deals. I'm totally fine with a 2-year deal for a reliever, especially if it's a reliever that has really good stuff that you can have. I think that is totally fine. And I think that's the aspect in which you target free agency, as you look at the abundance of right-handed relievers, which there is a good abundance of really good right-handed relievers. You go pick and choose free agency in that aspect. Perhaps you can look for a little bit of free agency if you need a little bit of depth of the starters. That's very debatable as far as whether the Dodgers actually need starting pitching depth. I don't think they need it, but it would not surprise me at all if they went out and targeted somebody with that. But when it comes to an outfielder, I don't want to completely sacrifice all of the years when you have the assets that you have right now. I think trade pieces for an outfield position player type prospect, I think, is the better valuation that you can go down.
I think the Dodgers need a closer, and I'm still on the Devin Williams train. I know he didn't have a good year last year, but I think with the Dodgers, all that gets fixed. Devin Williams is the guy that I would go get, and we're going to have to leave it at that. You want to have any final thoughts? We got about 15 seconds here, Austin.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. Additional coverage coming up. Obviously, the Nashachka interview. Rule 5 draft is happening, or guys need to be protected in about a week. We will be covering that soon.
Tomorrow night, actually. And so we had the Nashachka interview today. I've got David Anderson coming on. I've got Chris Gutierrez. I've got Dickie Joe Thon. I've got Sean Coyne. I've got Kevin LaChance, who's the hitting. I've got just about every coach in the system. I got scouts coming on. Once I get past all that, then I'll get back into the player interviews, which will be probably sometime in December. But you're going to get introduced to just about every level of manager, coach, and everything that you can. That's going to be more of the release that at the lunchtime type, and then the nighttime shows will be shows like this. So, Austin, what an incredible job. You are absolutely a rock star. You Dodgers Dogs fans out there, you are the absolute best. So thank you so much for the wonderful crowd tonight. This has been a lot of fun. So until next time, which will be tomorrow night with Austin and I, have a great evening. It's a great day to be a Dodger.